Podcast HeatWrestling.com. I'm Derek Sabato here on the next edition of Beyond the Lens with David Sahadi. David, how you doing tonight?
I'm doing great, Derek. How are you doing tonight?
Doing it better, I'd be somewhere else, I promise.
You got to laugh right off the top.
Right off the top. We are
speaking of off the top, Derek. I have some breaking news.
Ooh.
And that is that there will be no opening statement tonight whatsoever. None. We've had one every show so far. I have a warning for viewers. There will be no crying nor intense anger from me tonight, unless, of course, you pull it out. You're very good at that.
Hope not.
And I also want to start before we start with a compliment to you and also a challenge.
Oh.
In our previous interviews, you found some amazing details that very few people know about. So that's a credit to you as being a great journalist, being investigative, doing your research. And I appreciate that as well, because it helps me tell better stories. But my challenge to you is this, Derek. We're going to talk about Brock Lesnar tonight.
Yes, we are.
And in my book that's coming out in January, Brock Lesnar is not mentioned. So I'm wondering what you know about my working relationship with Brock Lesnar. So it's a nice compliment to you, but it's also a challenge, my friend.
I'm up for the challenge. And yes, we are discussing the Beast. Is it the Beast incarnate? He is the Beast. The next big thing when he worked with you, yes. Brock Lesnar returned at WWE SummerSlam 2025 to the surprise of what seemed like everyone, except for a few people. But Brock is back in the WWE, and you worked with Brock, if my research is correct, when he first started in the WWE, coming up out of Ohio Valley Wrestling as the next big thing. What was your first introduction?
Well, your facts are correct, but that's kind of an easy one. But my first introduction was we were shooting a ID shoot with Brock Lesnar in South Beach, Florida. And we had, promos that were saying the next big thing is coming, the next big thing is coming. And this was the next big thing has arrived. So it's right when he first started with WWE. And I had not met Brock Lesnar before. So I'm going to try to paint this picture so a viewer listener can imagine this, but I like to wait in the hotel lobby when a new talent that I'm working with is arriving. So I'm waiting there for Brock. And obviously you can tell it's Brock Lesnar. It's somebody special. He's a huge human being. So I approach him and I want the fans to, put themselves in my shoes. And I see this big guy and I said, "Hey, Brock Lesnar." And he turns around and looked at me with this glare. So it's kind of like that mean glare that he has. And here's a huge, intimidating guy that's just a genetic freak. And it was kind of intimidating, kind of scary. I'm like, "Hi, I'm David Sahadi. I am directing the shoot with you tomorrow." And he just looks at me and just nods his head, doesn't say anything. So I'm, again, a little intimidated, a little bit scared. And I write down my phone number and I said, "Brock, here's my phone number. I'll meet you in the lobby at 11 and personally drive you there. And if anything comes up or you have any questions, just give me a call." And that was great. The next morning, I got a call at about 9 o'clock. And he said, "David, it's Brock." I said, "Hello, Brock. I have a little situation here." And I'm thinking that he's going to cancel out on the shoot for some reason.
Sure.
And I said, "What is it, Brock?" And he goes, "My girlfriend was over last night and we had some red wine, a couple of bottles, and she got sick and she vomited all over the place. And she broke a bottle as well. And I'm just afraid that the management here at this hotel is going to kick us out." We had a great boutique hotel whenever we did shoots down in South Beach. It was off the main strip. And I was friends with the manager and the staff there. So it was a very friendly environment. And I said, "Brock, don't worry, you won't get kicked out. I'll make one call and I'll take care of it." So I went downstairs. I talked to the manager, who was my friend. I paid him a couple $100. And then Brock gets in the car and I said, "Brock, there's no problem whatsoever. When you get back after the shoot, you'll have a brand new room. Your other room is cleaned up. Nobody knows anything." He's like, "Thank you so much." So that was the first time I saw Brock going from that mean, menacing glare, just, being like friendly. He knew that he could trust me. That did him a favor. And there's a side of Brock Lesnar that most people don't know, but it's kind of like this little innocent boy that just, wants to be liked and, was like very calm and very soothing. When you're with Brock in real life and, you gained his friendship and his trust, he's not threatening whatsoever. He's very soft-spoken. And I like that about Brock. So that was my first impression of him, going from being scared to being liked by him. When it comes to the shoots, we did the shoot in a warehouse. And I told you once before that I love shooting in warehouses because they all have a different story to tell. And when you see a big athletic guy in one of those warehouses, it makes them look, incredible. This was a warehouse that was really a building that was modern, but it was gutted out to be repurposed and reconstructed in different ways. So you had these white concrete beams and, sliders and these posts. So it was kind of a modern gutted out building. And it was during the day, it was sunlight. And we actually had a lighting machine there as well, too, because even though it was sunlight and it wouldn't look as good as it was at nighttime with The Undertaker when it's dark, it's like the white lightning flashes would like light up his face a little bit. And on the intense ones, you'd get 5 to 10 frames of whites. Now, for a viewer, frames are fractions of a second. There are 30 frames per second. So 10 frames is 1/3 of a second. And what these white flashes did was they made great edit points. And my gosh, I mean, seeing Brock in his prime, 25, 26, just standing there, his body was all like oiled and glistened. It looked tremendous. It really did. And he looked like, this biggest larger than life superstar. So we're done with the shoot. We get back to the hotel and he's very grateful. And we decide to go out to dinner. And my dad is there as well as my producer, just the 4 of us. And we take him to Smith & Wollensky's. And he's very relaxed. He trusts us all. He knows that we had a great shoot that day. And Derek, what an appetite this guy has. I mean, I've never seen such a voracious appetite in my life. And he could really consume a lot of calories. So I think for dinner, I'm just trying to guess the size. It was either a 3 or 4 pound T-bone steak, the biggest one they had. They said, our lobsters come from 1.5 to 4 pounds. He goes, I want the 4 pound lobster. So he has a surf and turf. He has 2 shrimp cocktails as an appetizer, salad, and 2 sides of mashed potatoes. And he ate like it was nothing. My dad really liked this guy. My dad, was a sports writer. And he saw like the side of Brock that was an incredible physical specimen, a tremendous athlete. He can tell just by looking at him. But he really liked Brock's country demeanor, low-key, calm. Brock can be very charming if he wants to. So my dad always loved Brock Lesnar. And then here's a funny story. Brock and I go out later that night after dinner. We do a little bar hopping on South Beach. And, it's like I'm with Brock Lesnar. Just met him 24 hours ago. Just finished the shoot today. But I feel kind of like, it's a big guy. When he gives you that menacing look, it's just like, nobody's going to mess with him whatsoever. Yeah. So we go to the bar and I'm waiting to get a drink at the bar. And somebody like comes over and starts to nudge me and give me an attitude. And I turn to the guy and I give him an attitude back. And then all of a sudden Brock Lesnar comes up. Boom, looks at the guy. Okay, I'm going to pretend I'm Brock and you're the guy. That menacing look. And he goes, is there a problem here? And the other guy just melted. He saw how intimidating Brock was, and that he could probably break him in half in less than 2 seconds. And said, no problem. And he quietly walked away. So the first night, I'm kind of like, oh, yeah, I got Brock Lesnar as my bodyguard, man. It's like I can be cocky. I can like a pick fight if I want to. But it was just like, reassuring to have that guy there. It's a funny little story, but it's just, when you're with Brock Lesnar and he's your friend, it's like you feel like, nobody's going to harm you whatsoever or even mess with you.
These ID shoots, we would see the clips of him pretty prevalent in his intro video, also for the build for SummerSlam 02. Yes. So Brock gets into the company April 02, coming out of the draft, managed by Paul Heyman.
Yes.
Then he very quickly gets ascended up to the next big thing, to the title picture, winning King of the Ring, earning a world title shot against The Rock at SummerSlam. Yeah. That is one of the biggest matches in the company's history, too, as it sets the stage for what was supposed to be a generational run for Brock. Tell me what you remember about SummerSlam 02.
I remember that I was home for the event, but I produced a cold opener for SummerSlam as well. And in my humble opinion, it was the greatest cold opener I ever produced. It really featured Brock. I knew that he was going to go over and win the match, win the undisputed, championship. And The Rock just came back from Hollywood and he was going back again. So this whole opening video, using the footage that we shot in Miami, that warehouse, just making Brock look like this, monster, the beast, as you say, it's basically putting him over, this genetic freak, it's just like, he's unbeatable, unbreakable. And, in the copy, there were some shots that would take The Rock about, he's gone to Hollywood. He's gotten soft. He lives in a world of celluloid heroes right now, whereas Brock is in this real world, this big, tough thing, and how Brock was going to destroy him. And we used clips of The Rock from the music video with Method Man that I had shot a year earlier in South Beach, as well as like some clips from the movies. And I figured, you know what? Paul Heyman would be great to narrate this cold opening instead of using like a regular announcer. And Paul did a great job. And at one point I mentioned to Paul Heyman that, you know what? I'm thinking of using the last rites to end this thing. Like we're giving The Rock the last rites. And Paul goes, guess what? I speak Latin. And I said, you do? And he goes, yes, I can read them in Latin. So we record Paul, and he does 3 different reads. He does one that is very intense. And I wrote down the copy of it. Excuse my lack of Latin, but it's something like, in nomine Patris, e Filii, e Spiritus Sancti, Amen. So he read it one time super intense, one time a regular read, one time very soft spoken like a whisper. And in the audio mix, we did different layers, Derek, of all these different things. And sometimes we had 2 things at one time, the very intense, the very soft one. So the sound design of this by Chris Argento was tremendous. I mean, it gave me goosebumps. And I showed it to Paul Heyman a couple of days before SummerSlam, and we're in the edit room. And within 10 seconds, he's smiling. And typical Paul Heyman, this sounds creepy, but it's not. He puts his hand on my thigh and he goes, oh, I'm getting wood. I'm getting wood. Because he's excited. He knows it's something good. And when the payoff came, Paul was just like overjoyed at what a great job that we did. Sorry about my microphone having this little malfunction here.
You're good.
But he was just completely like, wow, that is so powerful. And I said, yes, you did a great read. Thank you. The Latin last rites at the end, different layers, was tremendous. I mean, just really, it shook you. And the music that we used was very orchestral, building. So it's kind of like, big, epic, but also like threatening, ominous, danger. Just a perfect combination seeing Brock in this. So I'm having a party with my friends at my house, getting ready to watch a show. And I'm bragging about this cold open because, again, I think it's the greatest cold open that never aired that I did. And maybe the greatest cold open ever.
I was going to say, I don't remember a cold open.
You never saw it.
Wow.
You never saw it because I get a phone call from Kevin Dunn, who's producing the show 5 minutes beforehand. And I know that it's something serious because, you're going on air in 5 minutes. So why would Kevin call me? And he said, David, it's Kevin. The cold open is not going to air tonight. I'll tell you why later, but just don't be upset, okay? It's not going to air tonight. Sorry. Bye. Hangs up. And I'm like, gosh, what a buzzkill. So we come on the air, I think, with a live shot. I don't even know, but I was just like really let down. And I found out a couple of days later that Brian Gerwitz, who was one on the creative team, but he's also Rock's personal writer. He would write all the promos for The Rock. He saw that cold open during the day, and he told The Rock, hey, you have to see this cold open. I think it buries you. I think Sahadi is burying you in this cold open, which I wasn't. It's just, if you're a fan of The Rock, what we're saying that cold open is going to make you hate Brock and want to root for The Rock. But also it's like a passing of the torch because Rock's going back to Hollywood. Here is Brock. And so The Rock saw it and said, I don't want that to air. And it never aired. And it's a shame because it was the right thing to do for the business, for where we were going. But I guess it wasn't the right thing for The Rock's reputation. So it got killed. And it's unfortunate. By the way, Derek, I know that we cannot show WWE footage on here or spots, but if this spot never aired, are we allowed to show that on the show or later on social or not? Because I can dig up a copy of it somewhere.
Fuck it, I'll try it. I don't give a shit. Let's go.
I mean, this made Brock look like the biggest, superstar action hero of all time. That's what it did. It was a put over Brock piece. And The Rock just happened to be a casualty of that, but it was a put over Brock piece.
I will promise you this. You get me a copy of it, I'll get it on social media. I don't know about on the show here.
Yeah. It may take me a couple of days. I think it lives on something called Digi-Betacams, which are actual physical tapes, which you had back then.
I was going to say, I don't even know what that means. So that sounds...
we had 1-inch tape, then we went to 3/4-inch tape, then went to Betacam, then Digi-Betacam, which is high definition, and then to everything right now is like on files and digital. But I can get a copy of that somehow.
How much do you have a copy of that we've never seen of just, anything?
I have a lot. I have pictures of Brock, hanging out with him. What kind of pictures are you thinking about in particular? Because I have a lot of stuff behind the scenes.
I'm more thinking like WWE Vault right now has been, showing these old matches that no one's ever seen. What do you have in your archives that WWE might not know about that, you would be interested in sharing?
Tons of photos. We did a commercial with Vince McMahon where it was for the King of the Ring, and Jerry Lawler chokes, dies, goes to heaven, or so he thinks so. And he's attacked by a bunch of other kings. And he goes, "Where am I?" And you cut to Vince, and like he's painted red as a devil, and he's laughing. So I got Vincent makeup getting his face painted red. I have a ton of behind the scenes stuff. There's also a behind the scenes stuff, Derek, of commercials I've done, like all the Raw openings, including Raw on the Roof, especially all the commercials that I did, the No Mercy commercials with Kane, both the baseball spot and the one for Halloween with Pete Rose, where he just buries Pete Rose. So there's a lot of behind the scenes pieces that probably are in the WWE Vault, which to me, if you're a fan, they're fascinating because I'm an NFL fan and a Yankees fan. Whenever I see behind the scenes pieces that
100%.
I've done, and they're usually candid too, which is great because people don't know they're getting shot, and that's your best stuff. It's when people are candid and they are relaxed. Quick little aside, but like Kurt Angle, whenever I would shoot him, he had a bad problem with his back and many other parts. He would always stretch. So I'd tell my DP or my cameraman, "Hey, just roll footage." Kurt, we're about 1 minute away. So he's stretching and getting his body fit, and limber naturally. I'm not asking him to stretch because if you ask him to stretch, it's going to look like he's acting. So like those are some of the greatest moments when they're candid and people don't know they're being photographed or filmed. And
you bring that up and it triggers a thought in my memory. One of my favorite shots is Kurt Angle running up the stairs to I don't know where it was, but it feels like it's going into an arena. Did you shoot that?
I shot that. Brock was in that commercial as well. It was a commercial for WrestleMania 19. And that shot with Kurt Angle running up the stairs was a second to last shot because we cut to him holding the belt up, a videotape shot.
That's it.
That was something called not a crane or a jib, but a techno crane. So most jibs and cranes go, I'll use my microphone as an example. They go this way and that way.
Right.
But the techno crane went straight. So I'm going to come right to the camera. Here's a techno crane. Boom. So we actually tracked him running up the staircase right in perfect sync. And I think that was one of the greatest shots that we've done.
The instant you said that was the first shot that popped into my head regarding that. So that to me, that's the stuff that triggered me as fan.
Yeah.
It's not always, how do I put this correctly? It's not always about the action that's in the ring. It is what is the build and what is the lead up and how do I get involved and how do I buy in? It's going to sound super dorky, but I don't really care. I'm 40 years old. WrestleMania X7 was
that Stone Cold and Taker?
Stone Cold Rock.
Stone Cold Rock, yeah.
23 years ago, 24 years ago, say 2001, 24 years ago, right? I watched that once a year. Just the My Way video. Once a year. Until YouTube was created and I didn't have to watch it anymore on the DVD version. And I will watch that once a year because it is my reminder of why I got into wrestling, why I enjoy doing these types of conversations and podcasts, because it did not matter to me that they were going to go out in the ring and Rock was going to drop the title and Austin was going to turn heel. That video set the stage of me being, at the time, 16 years old and just being like, this is the greatest shit I've ever watched. I'm a Limp Bizkit fan. I'm a WWF fan. I love Austin. I love Rock. I love it all. The storyline with Deborah sucked, but it all made sense in the video. I watch it once a year because I still think it's the best hype video I've ever seen.
I'm laughing for a reason, Derek. Can I take credit for that? Can I say that wasn't my greatest?
I would assume so, yes.
Well, everybody says or assumes that I did that because I did most of those kind of videos. That is one I did not do.
Wow,
But people
really?
that was done by either Adam Panucci or Chris Chambers or a combination of them both. And it was fantastic. I did the SummerSlam Highway to Hell spot with the
Great one.
Fireball with Stone Cold. So whenever they say My Way, I think they're referring to Highway. But yeah, that is not a David Sahadi production. So kudos to Chris Chambers and Adam Panucci for cutting that. It was tremendous. Very powerful. I want to say, hey, I inspired them by doing those kind of videos.
Sure.
But, they also inspired me as well with their editing techniques.
What is Chris Chambers and Adam Pachetti up to? They doing anything?
Panucci's a great guy. He's still working. He still keeps in touch with me. Chris Chambers doesn't so much. And one reason why is because he was my best friend at WWE. And, when I left, he was one that was told, especially, you can't contact Sahadi again. You can't talk to him. You can't do anything with him. So he was in an awkward spot. He might have been the person that tipped me off about cookies and balloons, but right now I have a little lapse in memory, so I'm not sure if it was him. But getting back to that WrestleMania 19 spot, right before we go on next, I want to tell you something about that spot.
Please.
It featured Brock, of course. 3 different times I had him in that spot, but some of the stars that were in that were, I wrote down here, Booker T, Kurt Angle, RVD, Chris Jericho, sadly, Chris Benoit, Andrew, Tess Martin, and Eddie Guerrero. Yeah. And I want to read you the copy once and then explain the visuals.
Sure.
And it's going to be very chilling. I'm going to read you the copy second time and tell you something about me. So the copy was read by Tony Roberts, who's an Emmy Award-winning actor. He starred in a lot of Woody Allen films at the time, but he had a great voice. And here is the copy for the WrestleMania 19 commercial. We are all mortals. Our bodies, though strong, cannot defy time. One day, we will die. What matters most is the legacy we leave behind. Did we become all that we are capable of becoming? Did we make the difference we came here to make? Did we pursue our dreams, even though others around us thought that we were chasing illusions? Only those who dare to rise are able to lift themselves above horizons. Only those who chase dreams are the ones who catch them. WrestleMania 19, the showcase of the immortals. By the way, I coined that term years earlier, and I wish I got paid for that. But that was read by Tony Roberts. And in the spot, I had these athletes just like, in moments of reflection, they're backstage. I wanted the fans to feel as though it was right before the event. So they're pacing. Brock is pacing one of the scenes. They're reflecting. They're stretching. They're rocking. Booker T had a great overhead shot, him completely straight up above overhead of him skipping rope. But I'm going to read those first 4 lines again. Let me tell you first, in these first 4 lines, we use about 6 or 7 shots, and 3 of the talent in there have passed. Yeah. Chris Benoit, Eddie Guerrero, and Andrew Tess Martin, all within a year. So when you see that spot right now, it really gives me goosebumps, because especially on that line, we'll die. There's Eddie Guerrero, and that shot ends with it going to white. But we are all mortals. Our bodies, though strong, cannot defy time. One day we'll die. And there are 3, athletes in the prime that just, sadly passed. So it's just, it's kind of eerie when you look at that spot right now. Yeah. Now, so that's about wrestling, about WrestleMania, about the athletes. But Derek, I didn't realize this until about a year later. It's also about me, because I had this inkling to leave and take a sabbatical for about 9 months to a year before I finally had the courage to take it. So now you're David Sahadi, okay? And you're thinking about my life at this moment. So now this is my thought. Sure. We're all mortals. Our bodies, though strong, cannot defy time. One day we'll die. What matters most is the legacy we leave behind. Did we become all that we are capable of becoming? Did we make the difference we came here to make? Did we fulfill our dreams when all around us thought we were chasing illusions? Only those who dare to rise are able to lift themselves above horizons. Only those who chase dreams are the ones who catch them. So that's me having my midlife crisis, to have I become all that I'm capable of becoming. Did I make the difference I came here to make? And that was really the impetus for me leaving, because I wasn't sure. I said, is there a greater purpose for me in life than just like working for the WWE? So it's amazing how it's got dual meaning, that copy. And I didn't even realized that I was writing about myself at that time. I made a wrestling commercial.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's
it's about me as well. And that's when you think, I'm between the athletes that passed and this really being about me and making my decision, which I made just 3 months later to leave, it was like, wow, it's interesting.
How much of you came through in your creative? Like, because you say that, and like, it makes me think like some of the taglines, some of the way you presented things, it was about you just formulated a different way. Is that right?
Yes, it was. And I always write from emotion. And usually it's my emotions that inspire something. That's one of the first things Vince said, was it's all about emotion. And I took that to be reflected in everything that I produced, whether it was a spot or a package. Like, here's an example. There's a Hard to Kill open for TNA that I did right when my dad was dying. It was about an hour and a half before he passed. And it's really all about my father. But I put wrestling pictures to that, and it became like, a Hard to Kill opening for my dad. I mean, for TNA, but it's really about my dad and the pain that I was going through and the pain he was going through. I wrote that personally, but I turned it into a wrestling cold open, and nobody would even know unless I told them the backstory to that. So yeah, personal experiences always were reflected in my work.
Do you think, and complete, this is, we've now veered off the topic, but I want to stay on this path. Do you think that the AI, homogenization type of creative forces that have been noticeably absent last 5-10 years, especially Thunderdome time, where there was no crowd, no reaction? I understand you didn't have people, but it has felt very monochrome. Do you think that people involved in where creative forces now are just not as creative? Or do you think that it's just, we need to put together a video package, how do we do it type thing in wrestling in general right now?
I think people are just not as creative, and it's easy not to be. We're so distracted with social media, with so many short little things. I heard somewhere that if you don't capture somebody within 3 seconds on social media, they just click on to the next thing.
That's true.
But there's one thing that AI can't do, and most people don't get this. I mean, it's great writing a press release, Derek. I've used it for like stuff to write, little factual things, and then I put my own spin on that. But it doesn't capture emotion. Emotion comes from the heart. It comes from the soul, from my real life experiences where they were very elated or sad and devastating. It's like I turn those into works of art, or in this case, cold opens for pay-per-view events. So AI can't replicate emotion. AI is great with so many things. AI is, it's not real. It's not human. It's missing the human spirit. And AI is great with graphics. It's just like, I always tell people who rely heavily on graphics, for packages and promos and cold opens. Yeah, graphics are cool, but they're also cold. And they say, what do you mean by that? Cold. I said, they lack emotion. I said, whenever you talk about any great package, you talk about the Olympics package, which I didn't cut, you probably don't remember the graphics in that, but you remember how it made you feel, Derek.
Yeah.
And how you make somebody feel is something that AI cannot replicate. So it's like, people have to understand that AI is a tool for humanity, but humanity cannot be a servant to AI. So know how to use it the right way. And it's that simple. But yeah, emotion is something that people feel, and you can't replicate that artificially.
Speaking of emotion, WrestleMania 19 is the only main event WrestleMania for Brock in his first run, which when you think back, really crazy. He was the next big thing. And by WrestleMania 20, he's gone. He is opting out of the WWE's and the mid-card with Bill Goldberg, that infamous match at Madison Square Garden. But WrestleMania 19, it's him and Kurt Angle on top, and one of the scariest finishes in the history of professional wrestling. What do you remember about WrestleMania 19 and Brock's involvement in it?
Well, I remember that shot of him that was on television on pay-per-view, and it's just like you see his head, hit the canvas first, and his neck, and I just, I'm surprised he got up. I just watched that about 3 months ago again, and at the end, Brock couldn't even stand to hold the belt. So they end with a great shot of him like sitting down between the ropes, holding the belt to the handheld camera, but he couldn't even stand at the end. But here's something that most people don't know. I had planned to do a theatrical release for WrestleMania 19, and it was going to be called WrestleMania, the movie. I wanted a theatrical release. I wanted it in the big screens. And in theaters, we talk about, different sizes, like Instagram is like boxes. This podcast is 16 by 9. So if this is 16 by 9 right here. Then I'm going to show you what a movie looks like. And we would fake this treatment sometimes in post by calling it a letterbox, but that's the dimensions of the big screen in a movie.
Okay.
And I'm like, wow, if we put there's more, it's just like we're doing right now in 16 by 9, but just expand the sides. And dude, I hired a camera crew and a producer named Phil Spilker in Los Angeles. Phil's a great guy, producer that worked with me on many of my spots. And we were talking today and joking how about the Wrestling Hall of Fame thing, there was one for production.
Yeah.
Phil would be in there as well too, because, we did all these spots that nobody was doing back then that appealed to mainstream America, not just wrestling fans. And that helped build the company, make it this global conglomerate. But man, we had an army of 40 technicians, Derek. We had 20 cameramen. They were placed everywhere because I wanted this movie to be a great documentary, but feel like a movie. We had cameramen that were ringside. If you watch WrestleMania 19, you'll notice on the wide shots that there were a lot of cameramen that are ringside. Yeah, because I had like 4 film camera guys that were ringside, and their cameras were bigger because they had the film that was on them.
Right.
We had a film camera on at Jib. We had cameras backstage. I wanted to capture everything. That moment with Brock, I didn't see it live at the time because I was running all over the place, making sure we had cameras in the right positions just for all these different things, including Undertaker's entrance. I think it was on a motorcycle. We were in Seattle. But just like, Derek, this army was tremendous. We had a room where they would change films. So video cameras are tied in directly to the truck. You don't have to change anything, but a film camera might only have 30 to 40 minutes of film time on there, depending on what your frame rate is. So as cameramen were running out to have their film taken out in this room by people that were have to put it under this black thing because you can't let film get exposed to any kind of light or it's ruined. So cameramen are running into this building to get reloaded as other cameramen are running out with another loaded camera. It was just a well-oiled machine. We captured everything with audio. Brock had that moment at which I didn't see, but I had 2 cameras backstage. And as he's getting attended to by EMTs, we were right there. We weren't intrusive in the sense that we're right in his face, but it's a documentary. It's a movie. Let's shoot this. And Stephanie McMahon told me, David, stop shooting this right now. The only time I ever saw her really angry at me, but David, stop shooting this right now. I said, Stephanie, it's a documentary. We don't want to show this. Dan, we don't want to show this. Stop it. And I'm like, well, we don't have to use it, but let's just shoot it anyway. No, stop it right now. So we went about 10 feet back to my camera guys, the 2 that were there to keep on running. So they put their cameras down like we weren't shooting, but we were rolling. So we captured everything because however it turned out, good or bad, I wanted that documented. It turned out that it was good. So that would have been great television or great movie. But that thing never aired in the theatrical sense. It never got, I want it to be pure. Somebody told me today, I think it was at, they saw that and it was mixed with film and video, WrestleMania, the movie. But I wanted that to be just nothing but film and done in a different way. And Chris Chambers and Heather Mitchell were doing a great job cutting pieces of this thing. I was involved in the production of it, of the capturing of everything, the creative at WrestleMania. But they were putting together this thing in little chunks and showing it to me. I'm like, wow, this is great. Nobody's done this before. And it just so happens that a month later, I gave my notice that I was leaving. And then they stopped editing. So there was a halt that was put to that. And maybe that's why it never got sent to the big theaters in cinematic form because, David Sahadi, produced that and we don't want to give him credit and he's gone anyways. So let's just turn it into something else. But that would have been, I think, one of the greatest movies ever, for wrestling at the time. There have been many great things that have been done since then, but at the time that would have been tremendous.
They've showed some of the clips of that in various WrestleMania documentaries. I think it aired at some point in time. But one of the major clips that I remember from that was Brock backstage, and everyone's trying to talk to him. And obviously, he just got his bell rung and landed on his head. Yeah. And you kind of see him just push someone away. Yeah. Brock had that capability, just being like, "Hey, can you do me a favor?" Normal person like me, and you'd be like, "I just need some space," and he's just, That's Brock, is it not?
It's so Brock. And I want to talk about a commercial later on. I'm going to tell you about Brock doing that exact same thing in a good way. But that is Brock. The footage that you saw was probably taken from one of those film cameras because we were back there. They didn't have the camera back there for that. So, hey, at least it got used. I'm glad that we kept on shooting that. Yeah. I'm glad that I didn't listen to Stephanie. Still love her. Hey, Stephanie, if you're seeing this, which you're probably not, sorry, but I just knew that we wanted to capture the stuff just to have it. We didn't have to use it. We had control over it. But I wanted to shoot that. So I'm glad that you saw that. That's awesome stuff. And that's kind of stuff that I love seeing behind the scenes, the real stuff that you can't fake.
Speaking of behind the scenes, and again, we are going to veer off topic. Have you watched the Netflix show yet, WWE Untold?
No, I've seen the Vince McMahon special on Netflix. I've watched a lot of A&E, documentaries and stuff that were done. Dark Side of the Ring, not done by WWE, but like WWE Legends, Rivalries, just great stuff. And I tend, Derek, right now to like not like watching wrestling shows anymore, like Raw and SmackDown, but these documentaries, it could be about any wrestler that I never even liked, but I watch it first minute, I'm captivated, I'm stuck in, and I'm watching these things. I find them fascinating. So what is the documentary? I want to watch this one. You say it's WWE.
So it's a 5 or 6 episode documentary of backstage at WWE, creative decisions, filming in guerrilla during matches.
Yeah.
I would love for you to take a peek at that. And
I am going to.
Tell me the feedback you would get, because I have a theory that what we're watching on that show is a total and complete work. Are there elements of real? Sure.
Yeah.
But there's a scene of Punk and Rollins in their Raw Netflix debut match. And during the match, they showed backstage Bruce Pritchard looking at Chris Park, the agent, going, "Hey, we're running long. We need to speed this up. Hey, we're running long, And then Bruce matter of factly just stands there, and Chris Park says, "All right," tells the referee, "We need to cut this out." And they cut it out, and they go to the finish, and they go home, and they get in the back, and then it's everyone standing around. Great job, great show, blah, blah, blah. And then Chris walks up to Bruce and goes, "I'm sorry, it ran long." And Bruce goes, "Listen, it was over-wrestled, overproduced, overwritten, but it was great. And that's all we care about." And you just see Chris Park. I have been in professional wrestling. We have shared a backstage together. We have done all these things. I can tell you without a shadow of doubt in my mind, that's not how that conversation goes.
I'm sure it wasn't,
at any point in time. So I believe that they're building a universe inside their own universe of work, shoot, conjecture. I'm probably not the first person to say this, but I'll put my foot in the ground. The Seth Rollins injury is going to be a big part of WWE Untold, whatever the next season is, because things that don't make sense on TV were going to make sense on that show. And then everyone's going to start to realize it's all one big universe.
Yeah.
I would love to get your reaction, what you see when you get an opportunity. So please, when you have 10 hours of time, feel free to watch that and report back, because I would love to discuss that with you.
I'm going to make you a promise, and that is by the time we do our next show, I will have watched that, because I found that stuff fascinating. And I also have a gift, Derek. It's partially or mostly based on experience, but I can tell you is something that is real or fake and scripted. It's just like I mentioned Kurt Angle stretching when he's doing it organically by himself. You just feel it. You can tell something's real or something is scripted. So I'll let you know about that.
Please.
And I'm probably going to start watching it tomorrow.
I would love your feedback on that.
I'd love to
with WrestleMania 19 wrapping up. That's it for his top level main event, biggest show of them all.
Yes.
You are also wrapping up your time with the company.
Yes.
And it's coming to a close very shortly. But I have to ask, were you there when Brock and Kurt went one-on-one?
Oh, you've done your research.
Not backstage.
You've done,
in the ring.
Yeah.
That infamous day, because I've heard the story from Kurt.
In front of the talent, yeah.
Yes, I've heard the story from Kurt. Were you there that day?
No, I wasn't, but I heard the story from Kurt from other people. And over time, Derek, things get embellished and they get either lengthened or shortened. So I heard that Kurt Angle pinned Brock in less than 30 seconds. So there wasn't even scoring that was involved. That's what I heard, that Kurt pinned Brock.
That was the story I heard as well.
Yeah, and I'm sure that he did, because think about the NFL as an analogy. players that are in college compared to the NFL is that small little difference between running a 4.4 and a 4.3 that you either make it or you don't. In the NFL draft, there are 252 players, I think, that are selected. Only half those players make an NFL team. And NFL teams are 53 players times 32. So it's that fine little line. So Kurt Angle, an Olympic gold medalist, Brock Lesnar, an NCAA champion, well, that fine line is a big, huge difference. So I would put my money on Kurt Angle anytime. It's funny because I had this idea for a Real American Freestyle. Today I came up with this, and I'm afraid to pitch it to Eric Bischoff because he might tell me why it's stupid. But Kurt Angle is involved in RAF1, as you know.
Yes.
He's going to have an on-air presence, and I can tell you what that is, or I can say, be quiet and say, I'm not exactly sure what he's doing. So I'm going to say, I'm not going to tell you what he's doing, but maybe I don't know. But if you know what I'm saying, I'm just skirting around the issue. But yeah, it's like I would take Kurt in a wrestling match against Brock anytime of the week, day, year. And I thought it'd be great to have a Legends match, in the future with Brock versus Kurt Angle, NCAA style rules or, Olympic wrestling rules. That'd be pretty fascinating. If it did come to the UFC, though, my money's on Brock Lesnar over Kurt Angle.
Yes.
But pure wrestling, Kurt Angle's Olympic gold medalist, and there's nothing higher than that. That's the biggest accolade you can get in that genre.
I talked to our mutual friend this week, and he told me he would be very happy to sit down with us and discuss things. He's got a busy schedule, but I can tell you it sounds like the Olympic gold medalist will be on Beyond the Lens with David Sahadi. So
that would be a dream. One of my favorite people to work with. I swear he was.
Stay tuned for that one.
Oh my gosh, I'm excited.
It will be coming to you here on podcastheatwrestling.com. Make sure you hit like, subscribe, turn on notifications. We will let you know when that's happening. But the time has come for your time in the WWE to come to an end. And we are also winding down the time for Brock Lesnar's time in the WWE to be coming to an end. Did you get a chance to work or shoot with him one more time before your time in the company wrapped up?
Yes, the very last spot I ever did. Well, when I say spot, I mean, a big time spot, not a, using some video clips, was for SummerSlam 2003. And it was a takeoff on the movie Jaws. We had a very similar kind of music that was threatening and ominous, doon, 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 doon. There's no narration in this commercial. It's all atmospheric sounds of like kids laughing on a beach, the wind, seagulls. We're seeing all these people on the beach, and there's a police sheriff who's kind of anxious, just like Ray Schneider was in the original movie Jaws. And then all of a sudden, it's like the lifeguard stands up, he sees something, he blows his whistle, and he says, "Shark, shark." And we do something called the Spielberg effect. It's where you push into the actor's face. As you're pushing in, you're also zooming out. Or you can do it the other way, where you're like pulling back, but then pushing in. So the actor's face is just like mine. It's centered, but the entire background either widens or collapses. And that's like giving you the feeling of being inside that person's mind and feeling his emotions of terror. He's screaming, "Everybody out of the water, shark, out of the water now, complete panic. Everybody's running out of the beach. Mothers are picking up their children. Somebody's saying, don't forget the baby. There's screams. And all of a sudden you see like these legs of somebody who's like running down, the sand towards the beach, going against everybody else that's, swimming upstream. He's going downstream. And it's real. That's Brock Lesnar. And he dives in the ocean. F5's a shark, and boom, happy ending. But when I talk about Brock being tough and push away, get away, here's a moment where Brock Lesnar did that. He actually mistimed his dive into the ocean, and get rid of that light right there. He basically hit his head on the sand, on a rocky slope portion, because it was in the wake, the bottom part of the wave, in between waves. So he got a concussion, and he never told me. He just stood up and said, I bumped my head. I dived in the shallow part by accident. And had I known he had a concussion, I would have stopped shooting right then. But he didn't tell me until afterwards, later on that night. I said, "Brock, why didn't you tell me?" He's like, "So I didn't want you to stop the shoot. That's why." But yeah, that was him being tough. But it was also the final spot I did, as you said. And that's also the day that Kevin Dunn broke the news to the entire staff that I was leaving. And I told that story on an earlier episode. But it's like, my last shoot ever was with Brock. And I'm glad that it was him or Kurt Angle or Jeff Hardy, my three favorites. But they stopped shooting the behind the scenes stuff halfway through. That was my tip off that, they knew that I was leaving. And that's why you'll never see the behind the scenes that commercial. Because there was great stuff to show on the behind the scenes that commercial. At least I don't think there's been a behind the scenes on that, because they only shot the first half of the making of the commercial. But yeah, that was it. Shoot's done. I'm going to go off on a little tangent right now about Brock.
Sure.
I'm in the car with my producer, Phil Spilker. By the way, Derek, this is gold. Phil Spilker, my producer, he produced that spot for me too. I have the production book. It's got, let's show our fans. I might even send you some pictures of this later on, okay?
Please.
We have some storyboards in here. They're sketches, but let me see if I can get you some storyboards. I got there are some storyboards. There is the guy with the Spielberg effect, the police, chief. But there's a lot of good information here. Nothing is, company secret. So I'll definitely show you some stuff.
Please.
Share with some people on social media.
Yeah.
But yeah. Some great stuff. So we're in the car, and I'm a little melancholy knowing that the news is broken. I tell Phil, I want to be quiet right now. I'm just a little sad, So we're driving around for 10 minutes back to the hotel, and I get a phone call from Kevin Sullivan, the producer, not the talent, who used to work with me in WWE. He quit 6 months earlier, and he calls me and goes, "Hey, Dave, I heard the news today, and it's a little bittersweet." I'm like, "What's so?" He's like, "Well, A, I'm glad that you finally had the balls to tell, the people that you're leaving the company. You've been talking about it for almost a year. But B, had I known, I wouldn't have quit, and I would have had your job." And I'm thinking, oh my God, it's like, goodbye, Kevin. I can't talk to you right now. And I hung up the phone on him. But like, the guy never would have had my job, because I saved him from getting fired twice by Vince and Kevin Dunn. I said, "Hey, I'll straighten him out. Don't worry about that. Please don't fire the guy." So it was a little bit of a sweet moment. But that night at dinner, we take Brock to Smith & Wollensky's. And he said before we went there that he wanted a surf and turf dinner, being that it was my last time, that I was leaving WWE. He really wanted to celebrate in big fashion. So you go to Smith & Wollensky's, and he has, again, double shrimp cocktail, a 4-pound steak, every side you can imagine. And we leave, and we're all like full. And Brock's like, "All right, that took care of the turf. Now where's the surf?" And I'm like, "What?" And he goes, "Yeah, I want some sushi right now. The second half of this." I'm like, "All right, I can't eat anymore, but obviously he can." So we go to this great sushi place. I forget the name of it. And there's Phil, Brock, and myself, and another person on the crew. And we're just watching Brock eat like 50 or 60 pieces of sushi. I don't know how he had the room for that. But again, the guy had the most voracious appetite of anybody that I knew. Just nothing but great stories about Brock. And always a great time as a bodyguard whenever you go out in public, especially to a bar.
What is something that you think Brock is misunderstood about from with your dealings with him?
I don't think he misunderstood anything, because Phil Spilker worked with Brock for UFC and some other things, after I left WWE. And he always said, "Hey, how's David doing? Tell him I said hello. Hey, tell David I wish him good luck at TNA. Hey, tell David that I've been watching some TNA and they're doing some good stuff there." So I don't think Brock ever misunderstood anything with me. I might be missing something, Derek. I'm not sure, but no, we had a pretty, good friendship. And again, Brock is not one that's going to go into much depth about his personal life.
Sure.
He'll tell you things about that, but he won't go into much depth. Are we out of time yet? Do I have time for another story? Here's a dark side of Brock, and I wasn't there, but Heather Mitchell was. She was a producer, just to show you how Brock could be this tough, cold, callous guy. But she was shooting an interview with Brock, a 30-minute interview in one of his barns in Nebraska, I believe. And they're about 10 minutes in, and the other guy goes, "There's something wrong with the audio." And Heather goes, "What is that?" And he goes, "Some weird sound." And Brock goes, "What does it sound like?" It goes, "Like some kind of like chirping or whatever." It's hard to describe, some kind of chirping. So Brock takes a rake, and he looks up and he sees a bird's nest. And he pokes it a couple times, and it falls down. And all these hatchlings are scattered there on the floor. They just were born or cracked out of the egg. And Brock just slowly steps on them one at a time and kills all 5 or 6 of them that were there, Heather told me.
Jesus.
And the audio guy was in shock, just thinking how could this guy that's so big just do that slowly and deliberately and callously? And in Brock's mind, he probably thought he was helping the audio guy out. So when he's done killing the last little hatchling, the audio guy, Brock turns to the audio guy, I'm told, and he goes, "How do things sound now?" And the audio guy's like, "Oh, sounds great. Everything sounds great right now. Thank you. but that's, the Brock tough side that we're all, used to hearing stories about. I never saw that side, but yeah.
Have you been in contact with him since you left WWE at any point?
No, and I'd like to be in contact with him. We had a good relationship. When I did Ric Flair's last match, I directed that show. I saw Undertaker backstage, Bret Hart, Mankind. It was great seeing those guys. It really was. I'd love to see Brock again. Just, it's like we always had a great relationship work-wise. And personally, I said that. I wouldn't call him like, on a slow day, hey, Brock, what are you doing today? What's going on?
Sure.
But like, whenever we worked together, he would tell me personal stories. And I felt, privileged that he would trust me and consider me a friend to tell me those kind of stories. So, yeah, nothing but good things about Brock.
And it's a privilege for everyone who has joined us tonight here on podcaststevewrestling.com on Beyond the Lens with David Sahadi, talking all things the Beast, Brock Lesnar, now his return into the WWE. We will be back next week. Stay tuned to our social medias at David Sahadi. I'm at Derek Sabato and at Watch Podcast Heat for what our next topic is going to be. You never know. Maybe we'll have a guest. Maybe we'll have something else going on. But stay tuned. We have a lot more coming. We have so much to discuss between the Montreal Screwjob. We have The Undertaker. We have Mankind. We have Mick Foley, people David has worked with up and down. We will be discussing all things here on Beyond the Lens. David, did we miss anything with Brock?
Probably, but guess what? There's always next show.
There's always next show.
Yeah.
I want to thank you
Derek,
all.
Maybe we should do something at the top of each show. I don't know. Where it's like a 2-minute recap of things that we missed on the previous show.
Fine.
Topic-wise, yeah.
If you think of anything that we missed, and we want to hear from you, drop a line in the comments. Have any questions for us? Want a topic chosen for us to discuss? We'd be happy to do so. Drop it in the comments here on podcaststevewrestling.com. Otherwise, we're out of time, and we'll be back next week with the next edition of Beyond the Lens with David Sahadi.
Thanks, everybody.